All right, we got a video to watch. Legendary Drops has a video that he came out with a couple days ago on the 24th. What's today's date? Today is the 27th, so like 3 days ago. Okay, the gaming industry has lost their collective mind. Okay, so I want to know what he's talking about here. We haven't watched this or seen it. You guys posted it this weekend. I saw it and I was like, you know what? We'll watch it on Monday because we usually like covering his stuff. So if you guys like it, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you'd like to go above and beyond that, become a member as little as $5. We appreciate you very much.
Recently, a nasty little conversation has reared its ugly head yet again, and it's that the video game industry games to be $100 or mark my.
We talked about this briefly last week, right? Where people the conversation has started. Right, Grand Theft Auto 6 can save the industry because they want them to make the first $80 to $100 game so they can all follow suit. Right, that's what everyone's running with. The media is running with the $100 Grand Theft Auto.
If this is the path that the industry chooses to follow, this will likely lead to the largest collapse this ever. They think that the layoffs, closures, and canceled games are bad now. You haven't seen any. The players already have a long list of reasons why not to buy games today. And you want to go and add an even bigger reason to that list? Likely for the vast majority of players, the reason that will be at the very top of their list. You know, for years now, we've heard about how they think that the video game industry bubble is going to burst because there's just been so much investor interest over the years.
Well, the costs keep going up. They kept putting the cost in there. They kept making the graphics higher. They kept hitting that ceiling. They started spending way more money than we didn't ask them to make a $200 and $300 million game, right? They kept doing it. They kept pushing the envelope and pushing it forward. And now, obviously, we have to pay, right? We have to pay for that.
The wages have increased, the cost of development and marketing has gone up, and the long development cycles that these games are in, 7 to 10 years in some cases, is just not making these games financially viable. These big AAA, these big shiny AAA games are too expensive to make for such little return.
Right, most games, right? You'll get the games that sell the 20 million copies. You'll like the Black Myth Wukong. You'll get the Helldivers. You'll get those games, right? But not a lot of games are doing that. Pal World did it, but it also didn't cost them $300 million. Okay, so when you get games that cost $400 million, they got to sell 7 to 10 million copies. Well, they're not.
So they've gotten themselves thinking, well, how do we fix this issue? What's the actual problem here? I mean, it can't be that our leadership is incompetent. It can't be the slop that we've been delivering to the customers. It can't be that we've been over-investing in these projects. It has to be that the customer's not paying enough money.
That's it, right? It's not that we can't make money in the industry. Well, they are making shit tons of money, by the way, right? We can't keep up with this. It's not because the gameplay sucks. The games are broke, buggy, unfinished, and they keep updating. They're trying to do live service games. We're not making it because people don't want to buy the games. It's because, well, we have to charge more money for these games.
That has to be the solution. So today what we're going to do is we're going to listen to the industry's long list of excuses as to why we need to be paying $100 or more. We're going to watch on as journalists seal clap the industry's death march into oblivion, and we're going to talk about why I think the players aren't going to buy. This isn't the first time we've had to have this.
Well, you will have people that buy. I mean, we have at least 2 or 3 people I know off the top of my head in our chat that'll buy regardless. Okay, but you're going to have a lot more people not buy, right? They're going to turn the industry into not into microtransactions. What microtransactions? The way people buy those, right? 20% make 80%. That's the way they're going to turn the video game industry. They're going to get 20% of the industry of people that buy games to make 80% of the industry.
This conversation back in 2023, Capcom's president came forward at an event in Japan and explained that video game prices were far too low even after the price hike up to $70, explaining that video game development costs are 100 times more expensive than they've ever been, and games haven't followed inflation like other industries. And he's not wrong. In 1990, a standard game would cost around $50. Adjust for inflation, that would be closer to $100 today. Yet, even with the price hikes in 2020 up to $70 for AAA games, the reality is that the industry just hasn't kept pace. Over the same time period, from 1990s to today, wages, marketing, and development costs have all skyrocketed. Game studios are spending exponentially more money than they ever did in the 90s or early 2000s, so the profit made on the sale of a single game has shrunk year over year. If we were to adjust in line with inflation from the early days of gaming to today, AAA games would be priced well over $100, maybe even $150 to be able to match today's financial realities. Now, all of that makes sense with nuance removed. However, we don't live in a world without nuance. The fact of the matter is that the vast majority of games that are released today make far more money past the point of sale. Something that didn't exist back when games were being made in the 90s and early 2000s. While they still had merchant
Right. Back then, they only had the game price. But now what they're doing is they have the game price, they have the microtransactions, they have the DLCs, they have the season pass, they have the battle pass. There's a lot of stuff they have now on top of it.
Merchandise, toys, and clothing, and other different things that they could sell. Now, today, games have DLC, loot boxes, gacha and gambling mechanics, microtransactions, expansions, collector's editions, and more. I'm sorry, but you can't convince me that video game companies aren't making enough money today, or there aren't enough ways for them to make money.
No, they're not making all the money. That's the problem, right? That's their problem. They're making the money, but they're like, well, how do we make the more money? Because the problem is, if you and I owned a business and we ran a business and it made a profit every year, but it didn't make this profit every year, it just made this profit every year, right? You would be okay, right? But if you had that one year, all of a sudden it went from, let's say you made, I don't know, $500,000 profit and it went to 1.5 million. Well, now you never want to go back to the 500,000, right? Because the 1.5, that's what you want to hit. Now you hit the 1.5. Well, then you hit the 1.5, and then it goes to 3. You're like, well, I'm never going back to the 1.5, so your projections are that next year is 3, and so on and so forth. So they're like, well, how do we do that? How do we keep this going up? And it's not small bits from like 500 to 600,000, then 600,000 to 700,000. No, it's big, giant leaps. So they thought from what happened back in when COVID shut everything down, and they were making money hand over fist. Okay, they thought they were going to constantly keep making that money. And that's why you see all these layoffs happening these last couple of years, right? And now they put themselves in a predicament where they have all these companies, they have all these developers, they have all these games, and they're like, well, how do we make our money back?
However, games journalist and industry analyst Matthew Ball are going to try to tell us otherwise. In an article written by Eddie Mackich titled GTA 6 could cost as much as
Remember, they just raised it from 60 to 70 just a couple years ago.
$100, some hope. Analyst clarifies comment. If Take-Two raises prices to $80 or more, other publishers could apparently follow suit. Eddie writes, veteran investment analyst and researcher Matthew Ball of Opinion has released a gargantuan 219-page report.
219-page report, Jesus.
About the state of video gaming in 2025. And some of the presentation looks at how the video game industry could possibly grow in 2025. In a section titled, How Player, Playtime, and Player Spend Might Return to Growth, Ball mentioned a variety of opportunities, including Grand Theft Auto 6 costing as much as $100 when it launches this year.
Here's the thing about they're pushing the Grand Theft Auto, and I've said this a couple weeks ago, right? Just because Grand Theft Auto comes out and costs $100 doesn't mean the next Assassin's Creed should cost $100. Doesn't mean the next Madden football should cost $100, right? If Madden hasn't done anything, right? If Madden charges Ultimate Team, they charge $70 for the standard edition. Now, same game that you bought just a couple years ago for $60, now you're paying $70. Same exact game with a roster update. They don't make any changes. It's broken, buggy when it comes out. They make the changes afterwards. 5 months later, it goes on sale. That game's going to be $80 now or $100 now. There's no more stuff in that game than there was when it was 60 or 70. They're just raising the price to raise the price. It's the same problem we have with microtransactions, right? The skins cost $10 or they cost $15. Same skin, but now they raise the price, but then they lower the price, right? They tell you it costs $28, but we're giving it to you for 50% off. It's like, come on. It didn't cost that much. It doesn't cost that much.
Ball said that there is hope among some in the game market that Take-Two will price GTA 6 at $80 or even $100, which could prove as a
I will laugh my ass off if they come out and they don't make the price of 80 or 100.
Turning point for the video game industry. This could break a key price barrier and allow developers to raise their prices as well, he said. Before this, a Baldur's Gate 3 developer said a GTA 6 could prompt a shift to more expensive games if Take-Two decides to price it above $70. In a series of follow-up posts, Ball shared further key updates.
Hold on a second, because his thing says almost all games should cost more at the base level because the cost of making them inflation, for one, is outpacing the price trend. But I don't think we'll get there with the DLC promises so much to quality and communications. Everyone's just waiting for GTA 6 to do it.
Take-Two decides to price it above $70. In a series of follow-up posts, Ball shared further key updates, including how GTA 4 was priced at $90 in real terms, with GTA 5 costing $83. Ball added, your rent is up, movie tickets have doubled, minimum wage, Spotify, Netflix, bus fare, gas, etc. Indeed, nearly all categories are up, not just flat in real terms, while games are at record lows. He went on to say Rockstar's cost isn't sufficient to set the price, but the argument games should be the only thing never to adjust for inflation and thus be, in the strictest terms, worth less every year is not healthy either or a good argument, in my opinion. Ball was not making a prediction himself that GTA 6 would cost $100, only that there is a belief in the market by some.
Well, okay, let's just say what they want to do, right? The problem is that the video game costs $70. Majority of people, that's on the tail end. Now, it's a hobby. Now, hobbies are expensive, right? And the reason entertainment was so cheap is because it was, to buy a DVD was $20. To buy a video game was 40 to 70, right? I've talked about this before. We've paid $80 for a video game back in 1980s, okay, off the Atari, right? So video games were priced at points, but it all depends on what game it is, okay? Just because Grand Theft Auto comes out and charges that much doesn't mean everybody else gets to charge that amount, right? Fall Guys wouldn't be a $100 game, okay? Like Outlaws shouldn't be a $100 game, right? Each game has to earn that price point that they get. You can't just say, well, this game is it, so that game is it, right? If Tunic came out and all of a sudden they charged $70 for Tunic, people wouldn't buy it, right? You're pricing yourself out of the market. The market says, well, if Grand Theft Auto comes in as $100, but then all games start to follow that suit, more people are going to get pushed to subscription services like I predicted, okay? Because they don't want to pay $100 for the video game. They want to go get the best value, and the best value would be if it was PlayStation Plus, if it was Ubisoft Plus, if it was EA Play, if it was Game Pass, if GeForce Now. That's the best bang for your buck.
That it could happen. For his money, Ball said that GTA 6 will cost $70. I can't believe I have to say this, but customers only ever care about inflation when said inflation affects them and their money.
Right.
$100 is $100. Whether it's 1990 or 2025,
exactly right.
No matter how you spin it, what excuses you make, or what numbers you point to, the vast majority of people just flat out cannot afford those prices. And
right. $100 for me 10 years ago is still $100 for me today, right? Sure. The money itself is inflated or whatnot. Well, $100 is still $100.
I have a far more difficult time justifying buying games day one or buying games at all. My friends with kids buy maybe 1-2 games a year, or they just spend their money on indie games because they're far cheaper, they tend to have more replay value, and they don't take as long to complete.
Or they get a streaming service.
My friends without kids, well, they work too much, and they can't even justify buying a $70 game, and they just choose to play free-to-play games instead. Gen Z is so...
What he just said there is exactly my experience, and maybe your guys' experience as well. Okay, most of my family and friends that are married don't even play video games. And if they buy games, it's 2 games, maybe a year. Okay, and the ones that don't have kids, well, they are working. They don't have time for video games, right? The only time people have for video games is people that are in a situation where maybe they're retired, maybe they're veterans that are injured and whatnot, and they get to play. People that are unemployed get to play. Kids get to play a lot. Okay, from middle school and high school, right? They all get to play a lot of games. But for everybody else, they don't get to play that many games. People that are on YouTube and stuff, that's their job, they get to play games. But the millions and millions of people out there, they don't get to play video games as much as everyone else thinks.
Maladjusted and ambivalent due to the pandemic that they can't even find work, and even if they do, they can't hold jobs for long. Heck, the vast majority of them are choosing to become NEETs out of choice. Who are they planning to sell these games to, and where are they going to find the money? When Ball mentions how GTA 4 was priced at $90 in real terms, he's talking about how the price of GTA, adjusting for inflation, was priced above inflation at the time, making $59.99 feel like $90 at the time. And that's why it should be completely...
I like how it says it feels like, yeah.
...fine for games to be $90 or $100 today. Here's the other thing they're missing. $100 isn't just a number. It's a cultural touchstone. It's a psychological threshold that makes consumers think twice before making a purchase. Crossing that $100 mark makes a statement. It's saying that this...
That's true as well, right? You are pushing across that psychological moment, right? And this is proven, right? So this is why when you go to like Walmart or Target or whatever, and they tell you a thing costs $19.99, right? You're like, oh, it's less than $20, right? Even though it's 1 penny less, right? If you're at $199.99, right, you're less than 200, right? If you're at $99.99, everyone's like, oh, it's under 100, right? So that's the mentality that they have. They're like, oh, it's under $100. But once you hit that $100, even if you put that 1 extra penny, they're like, I don't know. Can we swing that $100?
Product is now a luxury tier item, something that isn't just an impulse buy, but an investment, whether it's worth it or not. And that's when that feeling hits the hardest. It's not...
Kurt says 30. So what you're telling me is quit work so I can play more games. I mean, yeah, but you would play less games because you would have no money.
Just about the price tag. It's about the perception of value and what people can reasonably spend in an already stretched economy. Look, a $100 purchase feels like it demands a justification. I can't tell you guys how many times I had to overcome dread when I was wanting to upgrade from a $30 webcam and a $50 microphone. For many, this is going to be a breaking point. The moment where games start to feel more like an exclusive club for the people that can afford it and less like a pastime accessible to anyone who loves the medium. It's a barrier that not only reflects inflation, but also sets the tone for how the industry views its audience. One where
How much are CDs now? I'm talking about music CDs, like music discs, right? Do they even sell those anymore? How much is an album, right? Can someone tell me the last time you bought an album? And I would like to know because I don't know. Okay, how much is an album? Is it still $20? Is it still $25? Or did inflation go up and now an album costs $50 for just a digital version of it, right? I'm asking because, again, the last time I purchased a album of any kind was about 20 years ago.
Where only a select few can afford or truly engage with what the industry has to offer. I just hate how disingenuous all of this is. Ball says the prices for all things are up, and the idea that games need to stay the same price isn't fair, conveniently ignoring the fact that while the upfront price of games has remained relatively stable, the way that games are monetized has changed drastically. In-game purchases, microtransactions, season passes, battle.
All of you guys say the same thing. You're like, I don't know. Last thing I bought was a Red Hot Chili Pepper, about $30. It was a vinyl though. El Dente says last time I purchased an album was in 2004.
Passes and expensive collector's editions have all become the norm. Game companies have found new, more aggressive ways to squeeze every dollar from the player far beyond.
There you go. AAA and free-to-play share of a wallet. AAA and free-to-play game in spending account for 73% of all recurring spending from payers who spend on this game tier. Okay, share of wallet, 27% of game tiers. Share of wallet, 73% of AAA and free-to-play games.
Beyond the original price tag. A $60 to $70 game is no longer just that. It's an entry point. To truly experience whatever the game has to offer, players are often pressured into spending far more.
That's my point, though. Right, Altern, you're saying Spotify, right? My point being is, right, albums haven't gone up in an inflation, right? El Dente says I Googled when the album released that I know of, and the album is a Spanish rap album that got as a gift for someone, Blockbuster Video for $12.99, right? So the albums haven't gone up in price. They're the same price. Movies went up in price a bit because they went to Blu-ray. They went from like a $15 to $20 price to like a $25 to $30 price, okay? But that's because of the quality of the stuff, and there's something there, right? Plus, you have to buy a Blu-ray player, and the cheapest Blu-ray player at the time, when that was all going on, was the PlayStation 3, okay? That's why people bought the PlayStation 3. It was a smart move by Sony, okay? But for the most part, people don't buy albums anymore. Because why? Because the prices were going to go up, or they're charging more money for it. So what do? Well, they first pirated it during Napster's and all that time frame, right? And then Spotify came out. And now people just pay a service to stream as much music as possible for the best bang for their buck. So why do we feel that video games is different? Why do we feel that the other hobby in the entertainment industry format, we had movies, they went to streaming, music went to streaming, and now video games are going up in price. And what do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? Well, people are going to start either pirating more games if they're $100, or they're going to go towards a streaming service. If it's GeForce Now, if it's Game Pass, if it's Ubisoft Plus, whatever it is, they're going to go to a streaming service because they're not going to pay $100 for your video game.
More,
they might pay one time for a $100 video game of a game like Grand Theft Auto, okay? But they're not going to pay $100 for every game that comes out, right? Imagine if February comes out and you have 15 games come out that are all bangers and they're all $100. Yeah, good luck to you.
In additional content. Customers aren't just paying more, they're paying far beyond what they originally bargained for. And that's what should be addressed, not just the price tag on the box. And what's even more funny about...
We don't experience them in the same way. Well, movies you buy, okay, and you can watch that one time and never watch it again. Some people watch it nonstop. They'll put it back in their player. Music albums you can listen to is infinite. You can listen to it one time and be like, oh, I like that album, and put it away. Or you can constantly listen to it for 100 hours, 1,000 hours. You just love it. Okay, so yeah, we don't partake, all of us, the same way in the different pieces of entertainment, but there's some people that buy a video game, play it for 2 hours, 3 hours, and then put it down for 6 months. Then there's other people that put the game in and they pay it for hundreds of hours or thousands of hours. So each to their own. But you can look at the achievement list, right, gamer? When you look at the achievement list at a brand new game that comes out, wait a month, 2 months after, and you look at how many people, they tell you like 10 million people bought it, but then you look at the achievement that says, unlock the door, which is like chapter 1, it's like 13%. You're like, how is 10 million people own this game, but only 13% have opened the first door, right? So how many people pay $100 for a video game and then not play it? It's astronomically high.
All of this is the fact that the writer of this article actually ended up using the Baldur's Gate 3 developers' words out of context. And by the way, if you guys have paid attention at all to journalism over the last couple of years, they've been using Baldur's Gate 3 developers out of context constantly because they think it adds some type of emotional weight to whatever their words are.
Oh, yeah. Well, they only use the words they want to use to make their point. It's called moving the goalpost.
Are like, oh, look, here's this great developer that made a game that everybody loves saying that they agree with us, when 9 times out of 10, their words are completely out of context. They used it here saying that everybody's just waiting for GTA to increase the price, acting like the Baldur's Gate 3 developers want GTA to increase the price. When the original tweet that they had made was talking about how much they hated artificial price structures and gouging that we see in today's gaming industry.
Almost all games should cost more at the base level because of the cost of making them. Inflation, for one, is outpacing the price trends, but I don't think we'll all get the DLC promised so much as quality as the communication. Everyone is just waiting. Oh, we read that. Okay.
The original tweet actually said, I don't love the artificiality of pricing structures post-retail. Use the inflated base price to upsell a subscription and use vague content promises to inflate ultimate editions to make the base price look better.
Right. Okay, so this person works for Larian Studios. He says, I don't love the artificial price structure post-retail. Use the inflation-based price to upsell a subscription, and then use the vague content promises to inflate ultimate editions to make the base price look better. It all seems a bit dangerous and disconnected from the community, right? This is the same thing that Space Marines 2 did. This is the same thing that Ubisoft does with all their games, right? This is the same thing that EA does with some of their games, right? You show your DLC and stuff ahead of time to give that value of like, well, it could cost you $130, but really it's only this much, or you could pay $18, right?
It all seems a bit dangerous and disconnected from the community. I think the game should be priced according to its quality, breadth, and depth. I'm not against higher prices, but this arbitrary uniformity just doesn't make sense to me. It feels so unserious. I'm going to go off for a second.
Well, I think what you're saying, let me rewind that for a second so you don't stick it on his face, right? You're saying, right, we don't need to buy every game on release. That's what I think most people are realizing. Yeah, nobody has to buy a brand new game. Nobody, right? See, a movie, when it comes in theaters, has to get people to come to the theater. Has to come to the theater, right? Because they make most of their money back because there's a timer on that. Once it hits that theater, they're renting that space. They're only in theaters for a certain period of time, and then it goes bye-bye, and then this is what happened to DVD sales. This is where they would make most of their money. Video games, back in the day, they weren't competing with thousands and thousands and thousands of other games, right? Now you're competing with free-to-play, live service. You're competing with full-fledged games. You're competing with all these games, and we don't have to buy them. We don't have to buy it day one, okay? There's no FOMO because in the movies, it leaves the theater, but then it comes out, and then you have to purchase it, $20. Okay. But video games, they come out, and if you don't buy it day one, buy it week one, month one, year one, doesn't matter. It might go down in price. The longer it stays out, the cheaper it goes. But you're like, I got plenty of games to play. I don't have to buy a new game ever. I never have to buy a new game. You could just be 2 years behind, and you would save a shit ton of money. You could buy games, and this is why they got rid of physical media. Because these companies want to make as much money as possible. They said when they were going digital that games would be cheaper. What happened to that? What happened to that, right? They want to make as much money as possible and gouging the customer as much as they possibly can. With digital, with microtransactions, with live service, with fees, what doesn't matter.
It just doesn't make sense to me. It feels so unserious. I'm going to go off for a second. Don't you guys love how every single time they like to twist things to be able to suit whatever their narrative is, and everything is always coming from the perspective of the industry and never from the perspective of the player, of the customer, the people that are actually spending money on these things to begin with? Because we are never a priority. We are never at the forefront of discussion. We are never at the forefront of their mind when they're making...
No. You're a cow. You're the ground or you're the cow. You're there for them to milk you for the money that you have. You don't have any... They don't look at you as, well, you're a customer. They look at you as you're a cow.
These decisions. And then they sit back and they wonder why games are failing and studios are closing. I don't know. How could that possibly happen? The prices for everything is going up. You're absolutely right. Now that I think about it, you know what hasn't gone up with inflation? The general quality and day one performance of video games. Even some of the best games that we've seen released over the last few years can't even hit a standardized level of quality. We are spending $60 to $70 on brand new day one video games that we have to sit there and hold the bag because the game's not even finished, because it's always the minimum viable product.
Yep, my whole channel's based on make a game, sell a game. Most games come out and they're broke, buggy, unfinished, okay? And you have to wait 6, 8, 12, 18 months for the game to be complete and done.
It's being released to us, and we have to wait for them to finish the game for us to be able to play it. But let me take a wild guess and say they're probably going to try to blame the price of things on that as well. They want to talk about how expensive it is to make games today. You know, my question is, why are we the ones that need to keep up with you?
And right, you asked for it. We didn't ask for it. We didn't ask you to make the game where the ceiling of graphics is up here, and now you're making stuff where you're making fake frames and fake fake animations so you can put more data into the thing, right? You guys decided to do that, right? We didn't ask you to make a 100-player battle royale game where you can't keep 100 people in the game and then to put bots in there and constantly change the stuff. We didn't ask for that, right? You decided to make the stuff, you put it out to us, and then that's what we decided that we wanted to play for that month or that week or whatever.
Your spend. We didn't sign up for that. When I look around the industry, I see some of the most successful games over the last few years: Baldur's Gate 3, Black Myth Wukong, Space Marine 2. These games are made with a quarter of the budget of some of these big, flashy
Pal World is so cheap, and they made so much money.
AAA games that nobody ended up buying in the first place. You guys are making tens of billions of dollars. The vast majority of the money that is made in this industry is coming from microtransactions.
Yep.
This is not my problem.
It's none of our problems, right? And this is another part where they tell you that if you're sexist, racist, misogynistic, if you don't like the game. No, maybe your game's too expensive. Maybe I already spent the money that I had for that month on a different game, and then no one wanted to buy your game, because when you first show me your game, first impressions are everything, right? So if you show me a game like Monster Hunter World, and then another game comes out like Assassin's Creed Shadows in the same time frame, but now they push that game back, you're going to pick one or the other, especially if games are $100 a piece.
The sheer cowardice of these companies to sit by and wait for somebody else to increase prices because they know it's a game, or they think it's a game that everybody's going to buy, and it's going to be the best way to just sneak that price change in. And that is so telling, because you are pathetic and you realize that your games wouldn't sell.
Yeah.
Asmon, thanks for unpausing. Eddie,
did he just thank Asmo for unpausing?
He continues with $70 is the current market rate for new AAA releases, and in fact, it was Take-Two that was among the first to raise prices from $60 to $70 back in 2020. Many are naturally wondering if Take-Two might raise prices again for GTA 6's launch, but it remains to be seen if that'll happen. Beyond updating the sticker price for games, video publishers have found other ways to be able to make more money out of players, including expensive editions, microtransactions, and battle passes, just to name a few. GTA 5, for example, has sold 205 million copies and brings in a lot of money in microtransactions in GTA Online. Early predictions have said that GTA 6 could sell 40 million copies and earn more than $3 billion in revenue during its first year alone. Ball said that GTA 6's launch this year will have mixed impact on total player hours and revenue across the gaming industry because it'll only be available on console. A PC release is expected after the console launch. However, Ball said that GTA 6 will severely cannibalize total hours and spending that would go to other video.
Yeah, so that's exactly right. Okay, so this is Ball says the GTA 6 launch this year will have a mixed impact on total player hours and revenue. Okay, the gaming industry, because it'll only be available on console and PC release, expect after the console launch. However, Ball says that GTA 6 will severely cannibalize total hours spending, right? Think about this. A lot of people don't think about this, right? This is why I said that when Grand Theft Auto 6 comes out, people shift and move their game away from it, because they know if you come before it, you'll play the game, but it has to come quite a bit before it, because if you have $100, and you only have a certain amount of time to play these games, that if you bought, let's say, a game, I don't know, any game that was $100 right before Grand Theft Auto 6 comes out, okay? You spent that $100, but now you're not spending that $100 on Grand Theft Auto. Now you're like, I got to spend another $100. So you're like, you know what? I'm waiting. I'm going to wait for Grand Theft Auto 6 to come out, okay? And then when Grand Theft Auto 6 comes out, they're not playing anything else, okay? They're not playing another game for hundreds of hours, days, weeks, months go by. So any game that comes out afterwards is like, oh, well, we lost because no one's buying our game because they found a game that they like. If Grand Theft Auto comes out not broke, buggy, and unfinished, right? If it comes out and it's a complete game, then they made the game, they sold the game, and now they're cannibalizing the rest of the industry because that game is so good and people are starving for a good game.
Games when it launches. For its part, Ubisoft said GTA 6 is a good thing for the video game industry overall because a huge game like that may help more people turn to gaming. Some of the other areas that Ball listed off as having potential for growth in 2025 included further expansions into non-core markets, user-generated content, social game services, the Nintendo Switch 2, other new handhelds and devices, AA, AAA, mobile gaming, app store regulation, new game releases, generative AI, and advertising. Make this make sense. I do not understand how GTA 6, projecting 40 million copies sold and $3 billion in revenue in its first year, is somehow a footnote in a discussion as to why other games should increase their prices to $100. They are failing to realize why GTA 5 did so well, why GTA 6 is likely to do even better, or why it could even sell for $100 in the first place. You're not even thinking about what the impact of a price increase would be on other games and other studios outside of one of the biggest video game franchises.
Right. They're talking about the outlier of the industry of a Grand Theft Auto. And because the outlier can raise the price of their game, that everybody else in the industry can raise their price of their game as well.
Of all time, $70 is the new current market rate for AAA releases? No, I think it's the going market rate for trash. The best releases on PC over the past 2 years have been $60. I mean, take a minute to think about it. If game prices were $100 today, what games would have realistically come out at $100? Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League.
Yeah, what games would, right? Diablo would definitely be a $100 game, right? Suicide Squad probably would have been a $100 game, right? Outlaws probably would have been a $100 game because these were $100 games. They were trying to sell you their DLCs and whatnot, right? 100% these 3 games I named would have been $100.
Assassin's Creed Shadows, Skull and Bones, Star Wars Outlaws, Dragon Age the Veilguard, Diablo 4, Call of Duty, The Sims, sports games, trash.
Sports games, I like I said earlier, there's no way Madden would be $100. Standard edition.
Generics.
Like, they would ask for it. That'd be insane because that's not going to be worth $100 compared to other games that are worth $100.
Slop, and in some cases, absolute dumpster fires. And while some of them still would have reached an audience, they wouldn't have reached an audience of the same size because they would have cut off their leg to save a foot in regards to the game's price. I mean, think about what you're saying here. Even Ball mentions how GTA 6 is likely to cannibalize the sales and playtime of other games when they're released. Now imagine these morons raising their prices to $100. Good games sell well and bad games don't. And from my perspective, if the price
games sell a game, right?
Price of games were to increase,
if it's a good game, it'll sell. If it's a bad game, it will not.
It's going to price a lot of players out of a lot of games, and the entire market is going to shift. Good games will sell well, and bad games won't sell at all, which means a minor mistake could have catastrophic consequences for some of these studios, and the gap between successes is going to become an ocean many studios cannot cross. I do not understand.
If the industry goes to the $100, they will just push indie games and streaming services, right? People laugh at that. My wife just gave me this beautifully made coffee. Look at that. I didn't even ask for it. She loves me. Or she wants something. One of the two things. I think she loves me.
Understand why the conversation isn't focused around how much money these companies are spending on games. Companies that cannot properly budget their own projects, set realistic sales projections, or even target an audience's needs properly. Ubisoft spends hundreds of millions of dollars on a busted-ass pirate ship simulator.
Yeah, reportedly spent $650 to $850 million on Skull and Bones. Holy Christ.
EA invested hundreds of millions into an educational HR video disguised as Dragon Age. And we have so many more studios that are torching millions of dollars on bloated games filled with busy work and realistic.
And look, this didn't cost. Look at the size of this thing. This is a giant. Look at the size of that thing. Okay, I didn't have to go to Starbucks.
Eyelashes. What are we doing here? This industry is in a state of entropy where they just keep pressing forward. They keep spending more money. They're adding nothing to the core experience, and the customer is the one that is expected to keep up with their spending. They want to blame.
I want to rewind this part right here.
More studios that are torching millions of dollars on bloated games filled with busy work and realistic eyelashes. What are we doing here?
You're just updating games just to get the extra little bit, right? You're like, oh, well, this sold really well, so let's go back to that. Let's go back to that same pocket and see if we can find more money out of those people.
This industry is in a state of entropy where they just keep pressing forward. They keep spending more money. They're adding nothing to the core experience, and the customer is the one that is expected to keep up with their spending. They want to blame the failures of the industry on not making enough money, only to distract from the fact that it's their fault that people are losing their jobs. Studios are closing. And
upper management's terrible, right? Sarge said it. You have bad managers and poor money management. Yeah, their managers in these companies are terrible. Terrible.
Sales are dwindling. I actually read through Matthew Ball's 223-page presentation, and he unwittingly proved it himself. In 2020, IDC, Google, ARC, and SMP all made projections on what they thought the industry would look like with its growth in the coming year. They viewed the pandemic boom as an accelerant, not an anomaly.
See, it's exactly right. They looked at the COVID opportunity as this is how it's going to be forever.
Yes, these idiots thought that COVID was the future. ARK Investments
Yeah, they thought it was the future. not the outlier.
Forecasted that the industry would grow by 50% in 4 years, from $200 billion to $300 billion, meaning that investors, blindly trusting speculators, ran to invest in these companies and publishers, and in turn, those companies, flush with cash, invested heavily into their new future, only for them to be met with the crushing reality that
yeah. And the crushing reality of you're a bunch of morons.
None of those predictions would come true outside of Ampere. So if you're going to use them for investment, they're actually probably the better bet. They don't want game prices to increase for inflation. They want game prices to increase.
Let me just go back to that. This was the projections of what they were going to go do. Okay. That was the projections. The only one that had reality set in was Ampere.
Actually, probably the better bet. They don't want game prices to increase for inflation. They want game prices to increase to make up for their colossal financial hole that they've dug themselves into. The pandemic led
right. So they got themselves into it, and now we have to get them out of it, right? It's like the bailout, okay?
To a wave of overly optimistic projections. Popular forecasters and analysts predicted that gaming would experience perpetual growth. And
so think about this. They got themselves into this, and then these companies, for the last 4 years, 5 years, have brought out games, and they thought the best way of selling these games for us to get them out of the hole was to tell us that we were sexist, racist, misogynistic people, and they just don't know video game. That was their move on top of the stupid move they already did.
An assumption that was rooted in a brief surge during lockdown. These predictions were reckless, overlooking the fundamental truth. Once the pandemic subsided, people had to return to the working world. Inflation would then hit hard. I think a lot of people forget just how much of an impact stimulus checks had in the US. You had people that were low income and middle class earners that were making more money through unemployment than they ever did while they were employed. This ended up leading to a lot of unrealistic and excessive spending, especially given how much time they had on their hands. How the hell could you believe that the sales and engagement gaming saw in 2020 and 2021 would stay the same? Then I found out.
What is this? And so not only does the video game industry now fall short of global growth benchmarks, it's actually shrinking in real terms, down roughly 13% since 2021. Okay, video game content real spend. Okay, 2006 was 111 billion. 2021 was 231 billion. Okay, 2024 it's down to 200 billion. Everybody else has gone up. World real GDP has gone up. US real GDP has gone up. Japan real GDP has gone down. Well, they're having massive problems over there.
Just how delusional they are when I came across the slide that was talking about the shortfall of spending and how players were spending less money and how there were less hours that were spent in games and how that led to an unprecedented number of commercial disappointments and flops. Forspoken, Skull and Bones.
Look at all these bangers. Look at all these bangers that came out that did so well, right? Now, did I have fun with some of these? Sure did, okay? But they weren't successful, right? The ones I played was Gotham Knights, Hi-Fi Rush, Outlaws, Suicide Squad, and Avengers, okay? All those. I had fun, but I knew they were bad games. Look at all the bad games. X-Defiant, Forspoken, Gotham Knights, Multiverses, Skull and Bones, Crucible, that people forgot about that game. Gundam Evolution, Concord, the worst game ever created by form of actually staying out in public. 12 days, gone. Okay. Apex Mobile, Halo Infinite, Guardians of the Galaxy, Prince of Persia, Battlefield Mobile. Okay.
Bones, Concord, Halo Infinite, Redfall, Star Wars Outlaws, Avatar. These games did.
Hi-Fi is good, gamer, but it didn't do well. It didn't do well because they didn't market it correctly. They didn't do the proper things. It was a good game, but it was a flop. It was a flop.
Didn't fail because of some esoteric lack in spending. It's because these games sucked. Now, after I saw this, it got me thinking. I'll admit that I was taken aback when I saw just how much the industry had receded.
Guardians of the Galaxy is a very good game. But again, the market bears what it is. The last 4 years, people were telling you that you're racist, you're sexist, you're misogynistic for certain games. And they're like, well, yeah. Right? Guardians of the Galaxy didn't do well because it looked like a B squad of Guardians of the Galaxies, which was a dumb move during it didn't help that it came out after Marvel's Avengers, and Marvel's Avengers was the D squad, okay? Looking wise, was the D squad. And the Guardians of the Galaxy was a B squad, but you actually played the game. Guardians of the Galaxy was very good.
After 2020, I had expected a decline, sure, but not to that extent. It took me a while to process it, so I started comparing some of the numbers with some of the other charts in the presentation, and then I stumbled upon something eye-opening. For a while now, I've had this ongoing theory in my mind that the so-called silent majority, those unengaged, uneducated masses that the industry often points to, doesn't actually exist in the way they think they do.
It doesn't.
I've always believed that the controversies and the complaints that we see from gamers are more than just the noise of a toxic vocal minority. They have a real, tangible effect on how players spend their money and engage with games. And as much as these developers and journalists would try to dismiss it, I think our collective opinions hold more weight than they give us credit for. The slide in the presentation that caught my eye was the one that showed that while US GDP and world GDP were on the rise, indicating that global overall spending was up, player spending dropped 13% from 2021 to 2024. That's a pretty significant dip. And it made me think, what other industry exploded alongside gaming during this period? Social media. And guess what? Social media didn't take the same dive that gaming did.
It grew. Social media grew. So just like all of us had the exact same amount of time, more people stopped playing video games and more people started scrolling through, social media.
So think about it. Players who would have normally not been involved in gaming communities suddenly found themselves more connected than ever. The silent majority, those once quiet and unaware of the broader gaming world, became a part of it during COVID. They began engaging with games on a deeper level and their awareness grew. They didn't buy into what was just being fed to them. They started thinking critically and evaluated their purchases, participating in some of these online communities and sharing.
So basically what he's saying, at least what I think he's saying, is my analogy of people seeing the old man behind the curtain, right? In the Wizard of Oz, okay? A lot of people were just loving the Wizard of Oz. They're just loving the great and powerful wizard. But then during COVID, because they got to scroll through social media, they were more engaged and they saw what was happening behind the curtain and they got awoken.
Sharing their thoughts on other platforms like Twitter, Reddit, and Twitch. And I think that Twitch is a really good example of this because while their viewership has dipped a little bit since 2021, they still retained a lot of the audience that they captured.
That's interesting. I didn't know Twitch stayed pretty relevant. They went up and they stayed there. They're exactly where they were once. Well, a lot of people are still working at home and stuff. I wonder if that has something to do with it. But they've pretty much stayed there.
Captured during COVID. And they haven't fallen back to their pre-2020 numbers. That shows a community that stuck around, that was once passive consumers, is now much more active and informed. You have a group of customers who have returned to the workforce, who have less money to spend due to inflation, who likely picked up on a couple of YouTube channels or Twitch streamers that are talking about different issues that are going on in the industry, and they're still watching. They're still engaged.
There's also a lot more content creators on the platform.
Engaging with that content. This isn't just a trend, it's a fundamental change in how we as consumers, as customers, as players engage with this industry. We're not just the ones buying games anymore. We are shaping the conversations around them. We are shaping what their sales look like at the end of the day. And I think the developers and journalists are starting to realize this, even if they're reluctant to admit it. The players really are the ones with all the power.
Well, of course, that's in any business, though. Your customers are the ones that make or break your business. Doesn't matter. I'm going to have a food analogy here, just a business analogy, really. But it doesn't matter if you run a water park. It doesn't matter if you have a bakery. It doesn't matter if you have whatever your business is. Your customers are the ones that make you profitable. And if you're gouging the customers, then they're not going to give you your business. They'll go somewhere else. Just like our time. Our time is the most valuable thing we have, okay? Ever. Our time is the most valuable thing. Respect the player's time. If I'm going to pay $100 for your game and I enjoy your game, then cool. Okay? But if every game is $100 when they don't need to be $100 and they come out broke, buggy, unfinished, okay, that's the problem. Okay, the industry thinks that just because they're like God's gift, they're like, oh, right, it's like a YouTuber thinking that you have to subscribe to their channel, right, or you have to be a member of their channel. No, you have to earn. You have to earn the people that watch you. You have to earn the people that pay for your game. You have to earn the people that buy the donuts. Right? It's just not because I'm here I am. Why isn't it happening? Why am I not making money?
You look at the growth of social media and you see how many people are connected to it. It's at a point where it's oversaturation. We're still seeing the same levels of engagement during the lockdown days. They're still the same. A lot of the channels probably have seen even more growth since then. I would guarantee if I went out and I started polling some of the people that blew up or got big or anything like that during COVID, they probably still retained a lot of their audience, except for some of those Minecraft guys, but completely different story. They did that to themselves for the most part.
Which guys? Which one does he say?
Calling some of the people that blew up or got big or anything like that during COVID, they probably still retained a lot of their audience, except for some of those Minecraft guys, but completely different story. They
Minecraft
did that to themselves
guys
for the most part.
What happened to the Minecraft guys? Did I miss something? Am I forgetting a story?
But I think what the industry doesn't realize, or maybe they just don't want to realize it, that's probably really what it is that players are still engaged in all these discussions. All the views are still coming in on videos, all the tweets and all the Reddit stuff is still getting updates and all that good stuff. People are talking about the industry, but they're not buying the games and they're not playing the game. So what does that mean? That means that they're out there involved in these communities and they're avoiding games. You cannot tell me.
I think there's a lot of people that are gamers, okay? And I've never said this before because he just brought up a point that got me thinking, right? There's a lot of people, and I remember when my son was born 10 years ago, okay? And I couldn't play video games at that time, right? Because it's just impossible. Some of you have newborns and stuff like that. You understand, right? You want to play a game, but then something happens and you can't do it, right? So there's that time period I had where it was like 15 months, almost 2 years, like 24 months, right? Where I couldn't play a video game. I would sit down and try to play a video game, and then he would cry, or you have to fed, or you have to do stuff, or you have to sleep, or you're just exhausted, you have to work, you have to do. There's so much stuff you have to do, okay? That I think a lot of people are in this point now where they are gamers, but they can't game. So they're watching Twitch, they're watching YouTube. You guys are watching, me every morning, okay? Where you kind of live vicariously through people that are talking about video games or watching people play video games because you have to feel that you're still doing something else, right? Like how many of you walk around your house? Maybe you're doing it right now. Maybe you're at work. You have your phone. Maybe you have it just playing on the television set. You're doing stuff around your house. You're doing stuff for work, okay? But you're listening. You're multitasking. You're doing different things, but you don't have time to game, right? But you have time to listen to a video about gaming. You have time to, in the background, watch someone else play that video game that you're interested in, but that you didn't want to spend money on, okay? Like that is more, I think, prominent than a lot of people want to admit, right? Because there's a lot of people that buy the video game and then just sit on it, right? I know tons of you guys right now have a shit ton of backlog games that you pay for or you renting or whatever that you're not playing. You're just sitting in the background, and that's fine, but you're living vicariously through it. We all do it because we don't have enough time, right? While you're at work, you want to play video games, so you listen to someone talking about video games or watch someone play video games that you're interested in. So then when you get home, you know where to go or what to do and not waste your time.
That all the controversy that was surrounding Dragon Age the Veilguard didn't affect its sales. People waited for reviews. They felt the general vibe of the game and they avoided the game. And as such, the game failed. In most cases, a game with that name, a game that has that much cultural weight, Dragon Age, should have sold regardless. It still should have
sold like
did
7,
really
8
well,
million
but
copies.
It didn't. And why is it? Well, it's because people are paying attention to videos or watching videos or keeping up on previews and stuff like that. They're going off of the vibe before they actually go to buy. And as such, they're avoiding stuff that they don't think is worth their money.
And time, right? They're avoiding things that are not worth their time. So if someone that you watch or listen to, right, and you're like, well, that person doesn't want to play the game. And you're like, well, I only have a certain amount of time. I only have 5 hours a week to play. Well, I'm not going to pick up that game because it doesn't seem like it's a good game for me, right? And that's just it. That's exactly how it works. You're like, I don't have that time. I want a game that respects my time. I want a company that respects my time.
One thing that the analysts and the journalists aren't talking about is why GTA could sell for $100. The reason why is it's because it's a cultural phenomenon. It has been a culture. It's a massive game.
It could sell that much because of what it was before. Because of 3, because of 4, because of 5, because of Vice City, because of San Andreas, because of all the Grand Theft Autos that came before it have led up to this point of it comes out, and if it does charge $100, it can, because it can justify what we all know it came before, and we're all like, well, they did this before, so this game is going to be a massive. This game is going to be a phenomenon.
And the thing is that there's a lot of players that are out there that have overhyped the game in a lot of cases, but it's one of the most anticipated releases in forever, it feels like. And some people are confident the game is going to deliver, but I think a lot of people are going to buy it even if it doesn't because they're just going to do it. Simple as that. And there's a level of confidence there, consumer confidence, that I don't think exists anywhere else in the industry right now. Maybe there's a couple of studios that are out there that people are like, for sure, I'll buy one of their games. FromSoft is like that for a lot of people. Larian's now become one of those studios as well. I'm sure that people will probably pick up on Game Science or Saber or whatever it might be. But outside of that, the vast majority of games, most people are relatively leery about.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not a lot of studios. Anytime any game comes out, I'm pretty nervous because I'm like, I don't know if it's going to work day one. I don't know if it's...
I mean, look, I was excited about Transformers Reactivate. Sorry, not even coming out, right? So the moment that I was excited about something, I'm not excited about anything anymore, right? Don't cash the check before you can.
It's going to be worth my money. I don't know if they're going to deliver on all the promises,
right?
Even with the gameplay trailers and stuff like that, because We've had games in the past that have showed us gameplay trailers and the game didn't play anything like it. Sure, you're going to have some people that are out there that are going to be habit buyers and they will just go and pick up Grand Theft Auto. And I'm sure probably the same thing will happen for like sports games and stuff like that. But I'm just going to be honest with you. There's just a lot of people that are out there that can't afford $100 video games.
Yep.
And this isn't a shot at people being like,
nope, it's reality.
Broke boy or anything like that. Dude, I get it. Even like, I don't like spending that kind of money on something. I can write it off on my taxes.
Nobody likes to spend that type of money. Look, there's people that'll blow money left and right, but they'll bitch about the price of milk, right? They'll bitch about a carton of eggs, right? And you need food to live. Well, people will bitch about the food prices, but they won't bitch about a $100 video game, right? Each their own.
And I'll still feel dirty doing it. And to be honest with you, with the rise in popularity for PC gaming, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw a return to pirating. Just like in the
See, he said it too. He said it too. Surprised if it would be a rise of pirating again. Yeah, why not? If you're going to charge $100 for a video game, people are going to do it.
Early 2000s was CDs. They were overpriced. They were bulky. They were hard to store. They were easily damaged. $20-$30 for a CD? Bro, it was too much money. Everybody flooded to LimeWire and Napster and stuff like that. And I guarantee you'll probably see the same thing here because a lot of it is based off of convenience. While general customers, I don't really think are really interested in pirating games, just general consumers, they will be if the industry prices them out of it because they were at one point in time with music. Back in the day.
Here's what will happen, right? Two things are going to happen. If $100 video games come out and that's the norm, you're going to see a lot of people, if they're going to invest, they're going to invest in PCs because they'll get either they can pirate games or the games are just cheaper, okay? Just in general, most games are cheaper on PC. You can always get like a break on it, okay? Or they're going to go for a subscription model. I'm telling you right now, man, the more these prices raise up, Microsoft is in prime condition, man. They're in prime real estate where everyone's like, yeah, go ahead, make the $100 game. Make the $100 game because more people will come to the streaming services. GeForce Now will be rolling in dough because people are like, well, yeah, I'm not going to pay $100 a month because if every game comes out and someone wants to pay $100, they can now pay $30 for GeForce Now.
Nobody had any problem downloading movies, TV shows, and music, and still in a lot of cases people do. The only reason why they do it today is because it's convenient and relatively cheap in their eyes because they're spending it on subscription programs or whatever.
For fuck's sake, there's people still ripping movies and putting them directly on X. How many movies come out in theaters and you can watch the whole thing on Twitter, right? So you don't want to go pay for the movie for $15 for a movie, but you're okay watching it on X or YouTube, right? And then that person be like, well, I'm going to go pay $100 for a video game. Yeah, sure you are, bud. Sure you are.
This is going to be devastating to the industry if they make this choice because, like I said before, listing off some of the games, think about the games that they would actually sell for $100. The vast majority of games that release in a year aren't worth that kind of money.
Well, here's the best part. People that can justify a $100 video game, and then you have a game like Path of Exile 2, which has so much content and so much stuff in there, okay? And yet it's free. So then you look at it and go, if Diablo came out as $100 and Path of Exile came out as free to play, which one do you think is going to have more engagement?
And you know for a fact, anytime there's some type of just generic blanket price increase, they're all going to go for it and they're all going to fail.
Yep.
Outside of a handful, maybe 1, 2, 3 games a year.
What I love, sorry for the pause there, legendary drop. What I love is that people said, don't think that Larian Studios Boulder Day 3 is going to be the norm, okay? Right, because they made a game, sold a game, a complete game, and you could pay $80 for a whole kit of a video game that they gave you with the magnets and maps and things, okay, for $80, right? But yet the industry, the same people that told you that don't think that Larian Studios is going to be the norm is waiting for Rockstar to be like, this is going to be the norm, $100 video game, get out of here.
Here, maybe. And the funny thing is that even those games are going to suffer because most people aren't going to be able to justify $300 on 3 games. That's crazy. You out of your mind? That's half a console. What do you think?
The point that you just said it's half a console is mind-boggling because a console used to be $300.
Even a price increase up to $80, I think is going to be too much. It's just, I don't care what people say about, how realistically money feels today because of inflation or anything. $80 to $100 is a lot. And for most people, they're just going to pass on it. There's other games that are out there that are far cheaper, that are much more worth their money. and they're going to support them instead. So if these AAA companies want to go ahead and do it, these big, the biggest publishers and studios that we have that are out there, go.
I played in December. I played Brighter Shores. I played Path of Exile, and I played Marvel Rivals. Okay, 3 games that came out in November, December timeframe. Free to play, free to play, free to play. Now, obviously, Path of Exile was $30, all right, but it's a free to play game. So between all 3 of these games, I spent $30. Okay, and all 3 games, completely different games. Okay, one's like a RuneScape game, having a blast. I have like 160 hours in one of the games, in that game. Right? Marvel Rivals, I'm well over 100 hours in that game. And Path of Exile, I'm in like the 30, 40 category. And I spent $30. So now you're going to tell me you're going to bring in a game that's $100. Sorry. You're going to price yourself out of the market because the market has changed and evolved, right? For every game that comes out as $100, there's that game of Apex Legends, okay? There's that Warzone. There's that Fortnite. There's the Minecraft that you don't have to spend a goddamn dime on because you can just continue playing the game that is your own imagination. Okay, there's so many games that you can play that cost $0 that you've paid for, or you've paid for them for so many years ago. Okay, I paid $4 for Minecraft 11, 12 years ago. Okay, no game has beaten that price. Okay, I think at this point, Microsoft is paying me to play Minecraft. Okay, it's insane.
I love to make videos about it. Video I'm going to make for BioWare.
Oh, he's going to make one for BioWare?
It's a long time coming. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video.
I look forward
if you
to
guys
that.
did, like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it to your friends, share it on social media and things like that. Boost my engagement. Make me famous. See you guys later. Stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe.
Family.
So check out Legendary Drop. We have his description, his link down below. Please make sure you share, like, subscribe. We like watching his stuff. His channel has just exploded in the last year. So